Add to your enjoyment of the movies, we offer cold, refreshing, full-flavored drinks, choice popcorn, freshly popped, crisp and tasty, and richly coated taste-filled candy bars that are sure to please you. Yes, there are many good things here for your pleasure. Enjoy them.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Well, I read something that is discouraging, I think, about Zoom, which is
you
that...
just brought me down.
Sorry. That apparently, because people have spent so much time on Zoom meetings these last year and a half, like plastic surgeons are seeing a rise in people who want to have work done on their face because they spend so much time looking at their face and they get this distorted view of what their face looks like.
I guess that's good for their industry.
Yeah, I know, but I hate the idea that people like spend all this time looking at their nose and they're like, but I hate my nose.
Well, that's like listening to your voice. People hate their own voice.
They should be calling their electrician. It's all lighting. Just call your electrician, not your plastic surgeon.
Well, you know what's funny is I actually just got Invisalign because I can't stand looking at my teeth. Here you go. I just jumped in. I'm part of the problem. But we were Zooming before Zoom was a Zoom thing. We were the original Zoomers. We're Zoomer boomers. No, we're not even boomers.
We're not
millennials.
We are not millennials.
I'm not a millennial either.
Xers.
I'm a Gen X. I forgot. Who am I again? What is?
You're a Gen Xer.
You're a Gen Xer. Yeah. The term means a lot less than it did in the 90s, but it's still, I think,
it is still badass. So, anyways, if anyone's listening, we have our third member back.
I'm back.
What?
Welcome.
What?
This is crazy.
Yeah, you're not listening to a TMI Rewind episode.
Rewind. No, this is fresh.
This is fresh. This is huge. This is huge news. Welcome back.
Yes.
Christina, welcome back.
Can you cue up the Cotter theme?
Yeah, right.
Welcome back.
Actually, I'm like Mothra. I just emerged from my chrysalis.
Nice.
And I've come to save the world.
Where's your larvae?
I think it was the Melissa McCarthy episode. That's the last time we heard you live, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, because that was the last thing in my notebook that I had.
Wow. Thunder
Force.
Thunder Road. Great song.
Thunder Road. Thunderdome.
Yeah.
There we go.
I know it's been a while. So
it has been a while. A lot has happened. Jim and I have been holding down the fort, and people are getting sick of listening to us. So it's about time you came back. Voice of reason.
So I quickly want to say to our listeners, I'm sorry I haven't been here. If you follow me on Twitter or on Facebook, like if you're a fan of my books, and I hope that you are, but if you're not, I'm on Twitter and Facebook, and I mentioned earlier in the summer that I've been very sick. And unfortunately, even though there has been some small improvements, I continue to be sick, which means that I may be in and out in the future. I will do my best to be here. Certain things have improved, but I'm still having some difficulties. So I'm very happy to be back with you guys, and I hope that I can keep doing this regularly.
We're happy to have you back.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we do know that you will be sick the week that James Bond drops, by the way.
Oh, no. I feel a fever coming on.
Yeah.
What's that? We have a test at school?
Especially our sequel episode to the holiday special, because that's probably coming eventually. One of these Christmases, right?
Oh, it's got to be. Yes. So awesome. So that's cool. So we're all back. And what are we talking about this week?
Well, we have a certain Marvel feature that we've all been waiting for, Shang Chi, And the co-feature is John Woo's classic Hard Boiled.
Very interesting. Both
Yes.
with Tony Leung.
Yes, and I have so much to say about him generally and specifically. You guys know I'm like bursting at the seams about this,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Exactly.
And before we get into the news, I just want to point out that my tact of closing my eyes during previews paid off in a big way with Shang-Chi, because I had no idea that Tony Leung was in Shang-Chi.
There you go.
I read no articles. I looked at nothing online. I did not watch the trailer. So, and I had watched Hard Boiled before going to the cinema to see Shang-Chi, and it just almost exclaimed out loud when I'm like, this all makes sense to me now.
Yes. Yeah, the tie-in is genius.
You mean
and
why I picked it as a
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And it's very much his movie, by the way. So, but
yeah,
we'll get there. So you want to do a little bit of news? We'll fly through the news.
Sure,
and
let's
then we'll
fly.
Get into
Let's
Shang-Chi,
fly.
So let's fly. So you just mentioned trailers. We have not had news in a couple of weeks, but Spider-Man No Way Home trailer dropped, and I know you did not watch it. So
I did not watch it. I realize it dropped. I realize it dropped.
Yeah.
Didn't watch it.
This is hard to stay away from. I think my son watched it like 50 times. He's like, you got to watch a trailer. And I said, I don't like, they've already revealed way too much. So I don't want to know. So I have not watched it, but if you're on Facebook or Instagram, there's enough spoilers on there to kill it anyway. So it doesn't matter. They've already got my money. So we will be going to see it as long as it doesn't get bumped back, because we have a lot of movies that have been shuffled around. Ghostbusters has already been dropped back a week. And Top Gun's Maverick and Mission Impossible are both 2022. So no Tom Cruise for you in 2021.
I'm just glad that we got Shang-Chi when we did. I'm thankful for that.
I know. Let's see. Ed Asner has passed away.
Rest in peace, Carl Fredrickson.
Yes. And we just lost Willard Scott last night, who was, you may or may not know, was the original Ronald McDonald.
I did not know that.
Yes. Yeah, he just passed away last night. What other news do we have? Oh, Fran Drescher is now president of SAG. Interesting. I don't really have anything to add to that other than the fact that I saw the headline. I thought that was really interesting. And that she beat out Matthew Modine.
That's an interesting lineage there. Wasn't Melissa Gilbert the president of SAG at one point?
Yeah, I think she was.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. So that's all the news I really wanted to hit on. I do know that Jim was in Disney, and I don't know if you have anything, any adventures that you can share with us.
I just like to say that my distaste for other people is even more palpable than it has ever been in the past.
Wow, even being in the happiest place on earth could not.
Not quite. Yeah. There's always somebody that's trying to spoil that happiest experience for me.
Right. What, cutting the line,
just a number of things. One of my biggest pet peeves is if, because of COVID, what they're doing now, and because of the Delta variant, especially, and being that Florida is the center point in the United States. And of course, I chose to go when this all blew up. So it's, on me. But at Disney, what they're doing is indoors, they're mandating mask wearing. Okay. And outdoors, you can do whatever you want. So, obviously we wore our masks pretty much all the time that we were there. But just looking at people, haphazardly having their masks down so their nose is exposed, like, why even bother at that point, and just have some basic respect for other human beings.
Well, this is like, people who don't understand biology, like your nose is connected to your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
If your airway is open and exposed to the world, then,
unless I'm a mouth breather.
Yeah. And most of these people were, I would categorize them as mouth breathers. But I just want to give a shout out to the Disney staff that whenever this was spotted by someone on the ride or it was pointed out, they shut it down immediately. Like, ma'am, please raise your mask over your nose. So it was mandated. Also love those people because there's no fast pass. They've shut this down during COVID and there's something else coming to replace it, but it's not there yet. So This actually did make the lines move quicker than they normally would, because there wasn't none of that zipper effect where you're stopping the line and allowing the fast pass people to go, which is great if you're a fast pass person, but if you're not, it's not so great.
Why are they going ahead of us?
So there was a constant movement in the lines, but you always had these people that were waiting in line, like maybe one or two people like ahead of you, and they're on their phone talking to their party of 10 who are cutting the line behind them to get to their party. So I saw that happen a lot. And that's also a big pet peeve of mine in the parks. But I will say that the experience was amazing just because I had a lot of firsts. Rode the Tower of Terror for the very first time.
I can't believe that. I cannot believe that.
I was terrified. I was terrified of this thing. I'd never even been on it. I'm like, I do not do dropping. And Harrison was begging me to go on this. He's like, come on, please. It's not going to be so bad. And so he talked me into it. Nice. And as we're approaching it in the queue, I'm getting more and more like agitated. Palpitations are coming. I'm sweating. And this is what Disney wants you to feel, right? So I am like the prime candidate to go on this ride. And I'm terrified by the time I sit down. Then it's over. And I'm like, that wasn't so bad. That was actually kind of fun.
That's one of my favorite rides.
And you had nightmares for 3 weeks afterwards.
When Henry was little, I think we went on it like 3 times in a row. Because he's my kid, right? So he was like, let's go again.
Let's go again.
So that's what we ended up doing. And
cool.
and I will say that the crowds weren't so bad. So we were able to get on everything.
As far as population wise, you know, what?
And I really researched. So we've gone this time of year before, the week or two before Labor Day, because all the schools down south are back in session. So you've got that whole populace not there. The crowds weren't so bad. The wait times, I think the biggest wait time was 55 minutes that we waited. And that was for Smuggler's Run, the Millennium Falcon ride.
Yeah, I was going to say Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, but we rode Rise of the Resistance.
Oh, yeah. How was that? Because I heard
it
that
was
phenomenal.
Amazing. I cannot believe what they accomplished with this. It was just a combination of state-of-the-art ride vehicles, animatronics, and live actors. Not to spoil anything for either of you, but the people that are boarding you on the vehicles are alternately, because there's a couple of different sections to this ride where you're getting on different vehicles and different portions. At one point, it's the whole experience gives you the impression that you've been captured by the First Order, because you begin with the Resistance and then you get captured by the First Order and you get boarded onto another ride vehicle, but they act as if that you're a prisoner and they are not nice to you. These First Order people that are actually boarding you onto these vehicles. Yeah. So the whole thing was just amazing.
And you're like, I paid for this?
It was worth every cent that I paid for this vacation.
Awesome. Nice.
We managed to go on this twice, thankfully, because I know there's a lot of people that have had difficulty in seeing this just because of the low crowds. First time also I rode Avatar Rite of Passage, which was again another.
That is such a great ride, isn't it?
It is.
Like I don't even care about Avatar, but it's such an immersive.
What? There's 8 more movies coming.
Right.
Yeah, I could give a damn about Avatar.
I don't think anybody else even knows they're still making them.
The whole land is actually very beautiful. Like as soon as you walk into it, it's
with the floating rocks and whatnot. Yeah.
It's unbelievably detailed.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last time we were there, we couldn't get on it because it was a 3-hour wait and the fast passes were all done. This time, it was a 5-minute wait. Yeah. So we got on it a couple of times.
Avatar now.
Yeah, because everybody's in the Hollywood studios waiting for Rise of the Resistance and their boarding group.
They should merge those universes together.
So yeah, I can't say enough good things.
Very cool. All right, good.
Do you ride roller coasters, Jim?
It depends on the severity of the roller coaster.
Is there like a mathematical equation?
I will not, for example, I will not do the rock and roller coaster. I do not do Upside Down. But I do Space Mountain, I do Big Thunder, I do the Slinky Dog Dash and like that type of thing.
Do you go on Expedition Everest?
Yes.
That's a good one. That was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That was good.
Yeah. That's one.
Yeah, just for the I couldn't not do that just for looking for that Yeti alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about the Dragon Coaster in Playland over here? That thing's like 150 years old, made out of wood.
Yeah, I don't think I
A
would.
death trap. That's
I don't
a
think
death
I would
trap.
do that.
No, there's
But
no loops, but
the thing about Space Mountain, like there's, it's very well documented that it's the slowest of the Disney coasters. I
Yeah.
think the maximum speed is like 28 miles an hour, which you'd never know by riding the thing. But the thing about that one is that I'm always terrified of being beheaded because
the
it
beams.
looks like the structural
Sure.
the workings of Space Mountain are very close to the track, and they probably are, but it's probably just enough to clear, obviously. But yeah, it looks like you're about to die on that ride at any given time from what you can see in the darkness.
Awesome. Very cool. Good. Now I'm jealous. I have no clue when I'll ever get there.
So let's talk about what Christina saw.
I do want to I want to hear about this because I'm assuming that it's a traveling exhibit.
It is a traveling exhibit because it's going to close in a month and a half. And
Okay.
actually, because of the coronavirus restrictions, especially the ones that we had earlier in the year, I had trouble getting tickets for this. I had to get tickets for it like back in May so that we could go in September, because I had wanted to get tickets for my son's birthday and I couldn't get any tickets because they were especially at the time, they were restricting the number of people indoors in Illinois. So the exhibit it's sort of a history of Marvel exhibit. It's incredibly exhaustive. We were in the exhibit for almost 2 hours.
I would still be there.
You probably would, because
like you were sending us pictures of like original artwork.
Oh yeah, there's so much original artwork. Jeff,
Comic
you would have
pages.
fainted. You would have fainted. Some of
I'm
this stuff.
surprised that they allowed you to take pictures. To be honest with you,
you could take pictures, just no flash.
No flash.
Yeah.
You know that people don't adhere to that.
I mean, there was like original Jack Kirby artwork.
Yeah.
There was, they had the first Marvel comic. They had Fantastic Four #1. They had all of these,
behind glass, I'm hoping.
Yes, it's behind glass. It's hermetically sealed. Yeah. Nobody can touch it. They had like literally all these pages of original art. They had one thing that was great. I really enjoyed this. It was sort of like an evolution of Spider-Man. So like they showed like the Ditko art, and then they showed like the Todd McFarlane art. They're like just going through like the eras. There were movie props. There's these screens with like histories of all the characters. There was so much in there. And then of course there were like stands and stuff where you could like take a photo. You could sit next to the thing on a couch and
nice.
My
wife does that every night, by the way.
All this kind of stuff. So it was very, very exhaustive. And like certainly there was a contingent of people who don't really read comics who were just sort of like hurrying through so they could see the movie props, and that was kind of fine because like people like me, like I worked in a comic book store, and people like me who like to see like the history of these things or who like to see original pencil art, like sometimes they'd have like the pencils and then the inks next to each other, so you
see that's the one thing that really amazes me with how popular and massive this cinematic universe is, but it really has not translated into comic books coming into everyday lexicon. I mean, people, my son and his friends love these movies, but it has never once brought them to a comic store to go and buy a Spider-Man comic.
See, it's funny because my experience was that my son wanted to read the comics, especially after he started watching the films. So like he loves to get the comics, but he hates to do single issue. He likes it when like the graphic novel comes out.
Yeah, I agree. I'm
the whole story arc.
Yep, I'm the same way now. I'll just wait until a trade paperback drops.
But yeah, it was such a huge exhibit. It's like seriously though, and if you're a fan of the movies, even in a minor sense, there were so many film props.
Right. Well, just that group maquette that head piece, obviously that's just a sculpt for 3D scanning or whatever, but it was pretty impressive.
There was, I sent you guys like a few photos. I took
I know.
I took like 55 photos.
I'm working my butt off the other day. And I'm like, oh, I got 270 stops and you're hanging out with T'Challa. I'm like, oh man. Yeah. So we'll have to keep an eye on that because obviously if it's traveling, I'm hoping it'll hit here in the East Coast and
Yeah.
Anybody who's interested can look it up. What it's
It's called Universe of Heroes, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
The exhibit's officially
and you saw
called.
this at the Museum of
The Museum of Science and Industry.
Okay. In
Yeah.
Chicago.
In Chicago.
Okay. So go check it out if anybody's interested.
It's only be open, I think, until the end of October. So if people want to see this stuff, they need to.
Well, hopefully there's tickets still available. You can have to buy them in May.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the capacity increased a little
Is
bit over
opened,
the
yeah.
summer, but
Okay.
we all are back to an indoor mask mandate as well. So I
Okay.
don't know if they're restricting capacity at
Gotcha.
all.
So there you go. A little snippet of behind the scenes of what we do when we're not recording.
Yeah,
I just worked. I don't have anything to bring to the table. All right. So shall we get into this? Shang-Chi?
yes.
Marvel?
Shang-Chi.
Let us discuss Shang-Chi.
Yes, Shang-Chi. Do we know who this director, Destin Daniel Creighton? I'm not familiar with.
He's worked on with Brie Larson a few times
I
on a
did
number
see
of projects.
that. Right. And that ties into the spoiler alert, by the way. We'll try not to get into the weeds on this too much. It just dropped. But yeah, we might reveal stuff that you might not want to know if you are like Jim and walk in and be happily surprised that certain people are in this movie when you didn't know.
I closed my eyes during the Eternals trailer as well.
Yeah, that's the first time I saw that. So still not entirely sold on it, but we'll see that. We'll get there. So we had to go see it in the theater because this is not on Disney Plus. This is not premium access. This is theater. They stuck to their guns on this. And I don't know what your movie going experience was like, but I saw this opening night this Thursday, 7:00 showing. My theater had to have 50 to 70 people in it.
Really?
Jam packed.
Yes.
And everybody was so into this movie. It was unbelievable. First of all, you would have thought it was a stand-up routine by Aquafina because anything that came out of this girl's mouth, people were laughing. Even when it wasn't funny, they were still laughing.
So Scarlett may have something there. If Black Widow wasn't dropped on Disney Plus,
would more people? Yeah.
Would more people have seen Black Widow?
I absolutely agree, but I was thrilled. I'm sitting there, and of course, again, you go to the movie theaters in the last year, and you got like 3 people next to you, scattered about. And now I've got people shoulder to shoulder, and at first I'm like, oh man, here we go. But then it just, like I said, the people were so into this, and I was just like I was just vibing on it, and I'm like, this is it. This is what we want. We want this theater experience again. Cheering, singing at the end credits. They were singing.
We are going to be covering Candyman next week. And I saw Candyman on opening night of Shang-Chi, saw Shang-Chi a couple of days later. Once we got out of the movie, the parking lot was packed. There was no spaces available whatsoever. And it was all people there to see Shang-Chi. So I'm very happy to see that.
I hope the numbers are good this weekend.
We went to Shang-Chi yesterday. And it was 2:00 on a Saturday. It was 90% full. Like just the front row didn't have people in it, and they had so many showings. You could tell that everybody was there to see Shang-Chi. But we went to see Candyman. I went to see it on opening day.
Of course.
I was having like.
I'm sure you did. I'm surprised you didn't get an advanced screening sent to your house.
Having a meltdown, waiting for this movie.
A chocolate meltdown.
But Candyman. I think partially because there was a degree of anticipation from horror fans, but also it's a Chicago movie. We went on Friday afternoon for that one. It was 1:00 on Friday, and it was full of people. So I think Candyman did relatively well in the first weekend as well.
Yeah, we'll get into that next week, but that is a beautiful love letter to Chicago in many ways. Again, but yeah, we will, and I watched most of it with my eyes closed.
But this one, a return,
eyes wide open on this one.
Shang-Chi, the 25th movie in the MCU.
25. Wow.
25. So we get like a Lord of the Rings type recap at the beginning with our favorite Tony Leung. He is playing Wenwu, and it goes back 1,000 years, and he is a warlord who has come across the 10 rings, which gives him insurmountable power. And he uses them not for good, but for his own gain. So you see him in the beginning where he's I assume, taking over his first kingdom. And he just decimates this army, and he walks straight through them into the palace, and he becomes king. And from that point on, he just amasses power over the years. And this is the backstory of the Ten Rings. You don't really get a sense of where these things came from or how he found
and you get
them.
a little bit of a tease in the end credit.
Like, did he find them in a crater? Some people say he got them from somewhere else, but nobody really knows.
Gollum dropped it.
Gollum dropped them, yeah, on all 10 fingers, because that's how it was presented in Iron Man 3. And I was so happy to see Ben Kingsley.
I thought that was pretty funny that they brought him back.
Stay focused. Do the plot recap first, then go into the weeds.
Fast forward to the 90s, and Wenwu's character has amassed everything that he's got to amass in this life. And he sets his sight on a magical village that's only been talked about in whispers and legends. And he wants to find it, Talo, a mythical land, pinpoints where it is, and he comes across a girl who is guarding the gates of Talo. And of course, he falls in love with Ying Li after they have a pretty damn good fight.
Yeah, this was nice.
And she is a match for the 10 rings. So this is kind of rushed in the beginning. It's never quite sure of, does she stay in the village? Does she go to live with him in the compound, which she eventually does, or how the relationship works? But they have kids. And one of them is Shang Chi. And we learn a little bit later that he has been trained by Wenwu to kind of follow in his father's footsteps. And he has left the compound at the tender age of 14 after being set upon a mission to kill the person that's taken his mother's life, just as a kid. This is too much for him. He leaves his father, ends up in San Francisco, and that's present day, where he is parking cars as a valet. His best friend, played by Awkwafina, and what was her character's name? Katie, that's right.
And
Katie
kills it.
She does. Although they are both very lighthearted, it's not like it's like
absolutely. I love the relationship between the two.
Yes. So he is running away from his past, and events of the movie, of course, bring him back to his father and back to the compound with Awkwafina in tow. There's several gorgeous fight scenes. There's one in particular when he goes to find his sister because they both confront their father. And there's a fight scene on the outside of a building, which is very balletic and graceful and just beautiful. And eventually, of course, the events of the plot bring them back to Talo, to the village, because Wenwu is convinced that his dead wife is calling to him from the village and that they have her imprisoned. But that is not the case. It is a very evil force that is calling to him. This is a giant monster called the Dweller in the Darkness, who is reaching out to Wenwu, masquerading as his wife. And Wenwu is convinced, he's bought it hook, line, and sinker, that his wife is being kept by the citizens of Talo. There's no reason why, but he's just in his madness that he's obsessed with this. And Shang-Chi and his sister want nothing to do with this. They're imprisoned. So with the help of Ben Kingsley, who comes back into it, they find the village themselves and get ready to have a final confrontation with Wenwu. And then after that, they have to deal with the Dweller in the Darkness, which is a beautiful giant kaiju fight between the Great Protector, which is a dragon, and the Dweller in the Darkness, which is a giant monster. So it was right in my sweet spot, the ending of this movie. So I'm thinking I'm giving away that I liked this, and I did. It was, however, the caveat, it's a little long. It could do with a trim. It was 2 hours plus. I always like these movies to be lean and hard. It could have dealt with probably about 15 minutes cut out of it somewhere. I don't know where, but
there's a lot of flashbacks. You got a lot of flashbacks. You got a lot of relationships between him and his mother, between him and his father, and him and his sister, and him and Katie.
But it's a very personal story.
Oh, absolutely. But I do believe that at the end, Tony Leung is like his character, who alludes that he is the Mandarin. At one point, he was referred to as the Mandarin, but it is his story.
And I think that because the amazing thing about Tony Leung is that this is his first Hollywood film,
which is amazing. That is and his first in English, right?
So wait a second. So he has never appeared in in a large scale English speaking film before?
No, he never has. And the thing is like I keep seeing all these reviews where people are like, oh my gosh, Tony Leung, you've never heard of him. Here's all the
I know,
movies
right?
that you need to see from him.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like nerds like me who've been watching him in Hong Kong films for years are like
screaming at the mountaintops.
like people are in the West are finally going to be able to appreciate his talent, because what a lot of people probably don't know is this man is a huge star. He is one of the
this is very obvious
stars in the world.
Yeah, he commands that screen when he's
he gets the last credit as well, and Tony Leung, as you know, with the cast credit at the very end of the movie.
Yeah,
he's not well known in the US if you're not like, you know, a very specific kind of nerd, but he is a humongous star. He's one of the biggest stars in Asia. He's worked with pretty much every great director that has come out of Hong Kong and mainland China. He is and he's an unbelievably talented actor who can convey 5,000 emotions only with his eyes. I think that
he was 1,000 years old too, so he had plenty of time to practice.
He's just an incredible talent, and I think that one of the things I really like about this movie is that it does actually have a lot of that exposition, because it really gives it this emotional heft that a lot of the Marvel movies and sort of big tentpole movies lack, because they don't take that time to sort of delve into people and their emotions and all this stuff, because the film doesn't have an impact if you don't spend that time.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. And like I said, those relationships Shang Chi has with those four people are the linchpin to who and what he is and why he.
But that's not saying that a movie under 2 hours can't emotionally connect.
No, but there is. I didn't notice the time. Like it wasn't like I was looking at my watch or like I said, I was completely into it, and I enjoyed it immensely. I really like this movie.
I agree that it doesn't necessarily mean that a film under 2 hours can't emotionally connect, but knowing the way that these films get cut, a lot of times with the tentpole, if stuff gets cut for time, they cut the dramatic exposition, and they don't cut the action sequences. You know,
I mean, you look at that bus sequence. That's 7 minutes. That's a 7-minute long fight scene, and it's like you're holding your breath the entire time.
One thing that the bus scene does, and even certainly the scene at the end where they're in Ta Lo, is that there's more stakes. A lot of times what I don't like about these movies is you don't feel like there's any sense of stakes.
Danger.
Yeah, like actual danger. But
maybe like when Black Widow's screaming a billion miles up in the air fighting. And she'll land.
You're right. You don't think she's really gonna die.
Right.
You know, and you don't necessarily think that the star of the film is going to die, but something might happen to one of those people on the bus. There were
that is true.
Some vulnerable people there. And actually we can get more into this in Hard Boiled, because John Woo makes the ultimate stakes in Hard Boiled in the last hour, where you have an awful lot of vulnerable people. But that's one of the things I think that I usually, why I'm usually bored with the action scenes, and I feel like they did a really good job of sort of showing a stronger sense of the stakes in the action sequences.
Now, one thing that struck me is the Wenwu character. He could have easily taken over the world with the 10 rings. He conquered all that he had to conquer, but he didn't really, like he's still very much underground. So that was a bit of a plot hole. Like he stayed underground, where he could have easily conquered the world from 1,000 years ago and been the dominant force, because these 10 rings had nothing to challenge it in all that time.
Well, I think the interesting thing is, he's transformed by his love, and then the loss of his love really makes him, again, this is so many similar themes to WandaVision, I think.
Yeah.
Where the grief really drives you to do things, that are you know, slightly inhuman, but everything's sort of in service of, you know, getting back that person that you lost. But he's really failed as a father because
Oh yeah, no, he pushed those kids away afterwards.
and
Yeah.
Shang-Chi confronts him about it at the
Yeah.
end and says,
No, but
you
even
know,
more
like,
so when you finally meet the sister, Shaolin, like her character is one of the stronger ones in this movie, by the way.
mhm.
Very much
Definitely,
so.
definitely.
And she's got a chip on her shoulder the size of Gibraltar.
And you don't even get a sense that he has a sister, because at the very beginning, when you see the flashback of Shang-Chi with his mother, there's no mention of a sister. And
Was
then
that a
I was
cultural
very
thing
surprised.
that girls are kind of submissive and pushed in the back?
Except that when you see Wenwu's recollections, you sort of see the happy family, right? You see the four of them together,
right,
doing things together.
Yeah, when they're on the couch together and whatnot.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's laid down that once Wenwu falls in love, he puts away the rings.
Yeah.
And that leaves him vulnerable. But still, the Iron Gang, the stupidest gang on the face of the earth, the rings are just in a case. It's not like he buried them at sea. He's like,
Right,
he's gonna put them back on and kill you all. It's like, don't you think this through?
Apparently not.
So they were apparently holding on to their grudge for a while because, you know, they come to confront him years after he stopped being a criminal. Right. So one thing that was sort of funny to me, I read an interview with Tony Leung where he was talking about the filming of this, and he was apparently very impressed by Marvel's safety protocols with stunts, because he comes from Hong Kong, where they basically use actors as crash test dummies, and I will tell you more about that when we talk about Hard Boiled, because Chow Yun-fat almost got killed. Tony Leung was almost blinded of filming that movie.
Sorry, you signed here.
And another Hong Kong legend is in this film who we have not discussed yet, Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh.
Who, by the way, ended up in a body cast filming one of her movies in Hong Kong. She fell 18 feet filming a movie called The Stunt Woman, and she dislocated.
And she didn't have one.
She did not, because they just used the actors as crash test dummies. Like I said,
that's crazy. Well, I mean, Jim brought up the one fight sequence on the outside of the building, the scaffolding, and to me that screamed Jackie Chan. Fight scenes to know, and again, we all know Jackie Chan did his own stunts, but it was well choreographed and it was beautiful to look at. It was a really nice scene there.
But everybody was safe.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Except for the 3 or 4 guys that fell. You know, only the bad guys fell. We do get Wong, a little cameo from Wong, and actually more than a cameo.
And Abomination coming back.
Tim Roth
from The Incredible Hulk. That was a surprise. That was a big surprise.
No, that's been all over the place in the trailer.
Oh, has it?
Yeah. Yeah. See, this is what you get for not watching the trailer, right?
See, I have so many clutch the pearls moments because I didn't watch the trailer. So Wong is apparently moonlighting on the side. He's making some money in this fight club. And I guess, why not? Why not?
And he was obviously working with the Abomination because...
And I love that. I love the setup. I love the John guy. Who calls him Busboy, who calls Shang-Chi Busboy.
Yes, Busboy. Because right, the guy videotapes in that fight scene, and then he goes viral on YouTube.
That's Ronnie Chieng. First of all, he's a correspondent on The Daily Show. Also on Netflix, he has a comedy special. He's incredibly funny.
Wait, are we talking about the guy on the bus that was videotaping?
No, the Fight Club guy. The Fight Club
guy.
Okay.
Yes, with the blonde mohawk.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's incredibly funny. He's so dry. He's actually one of my favorites, and he always has a little cameo in movies. He's actually in Godzilla vs. Kong. He was the shop owner.
Oh, they asked about the ammonia? That guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I do remember that scene now. Yeah.
He always seems to have these little cameos. He's in he has a smaller part in Crazy Rich Asians, which Michelle Yeoh is also in, and Awkwafina.
Awkwafina's in it, yeah.
Go watch it. It's a great movie. I was actually happy to see him and happy to see that his character returned at the end, because it means we might see him in the future.
Yeah.
It's funny we're talking about all these side characters and we're not really mentioning Shang Chi at all.
And Simu Liu like knocks it out of the park.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
He's
He's
great.
infinitely likable, and like I said, the relationship between him and Katie was just you felt like they really did like hang out with each other.
Yes, and I love the joke. She finally finds out who Shang-Chi is after the bus, and she calls him on, and you call yourself Sean? That's like if your name was Gina, you call yourself Gina, and you're going into.
I will say that Captain America would blush because the language in this was they were potty mouthed. There was a lot of cursing.
There was at least 2 or 3 like outright swear words.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that.
Hey, I'm just happy if there's no F-bombs.
You mentioned the end fight sequence, which to me was a little too Chronicles of Narnia. But I will say those food dogs, those living food dogs, were pretty cool.
Yes.
Actually, another Hong Kong legend in the village who played Guangbo, the archer.
Yep. Okay.
Yun Hua. He's a absolutely legendary Hong Kong actor, stuntman. He's an action choreographer. You need to be a big time nerd to know this. Also, if you've ever seen Kung Fu Hustle, he is the landlord in Kung Fu Hustle.
Okay.
And of course, they shout that out along with the Warriors, which I loved.
That Kung Fu Hustle reference was actually multi-layered. I felt because
he had the poster in his
the poster in his room. So obviously Yun Hua is in the film. He's also in Kung Fu Hustle, but also Stephen Chow, who stars in Kung Fu Hustle, is the reason why Tony Leung became an actor. He encouraged him to go try out for Hong Kong had this television station, like they have like an open call type thing. So he said, you should go and try out. And Tony Leung was, in his early 20s. He was an appliance repair salesman. And to his great surprise, they accepted him into the program. And then they do like this, basically, it's like a 6-week course where like they teach you how to act and they teach you Kung Fu and they teach you stunts and all the kind of all
off you go. Yeah,
kind
you're
of
doing
all
your
the
own
things
stunts.
that you need for the right. And then you like do their shows. It's like your like the old school studio system, where in Hollywood where actors like worked for a studio. So that was what he did. And
interesting.
So Stephen Chow was the reason why we have Tony Leung. So thank you, Stephen Chow.
There you go.
For encouraging him in the right direction.
Yes. The other person that we have not mentioned yet is Morris.
Who
people may think that this was just a ploy to make stuffed animals, but I guess this is really part of the legend, right? These creatures,
the creatures that look like they're footstools with.
I actually I got it. The Dijiang is what they're called. I thought he was kind of cool. He was neat. He was really cool. Now I want one.
Almost more importantly to me, he was Trevor Slattery's pet, who was Ben Kingsley coming back. And so there's payoff from that Marvel one-shot, All Hail the King, when you see him taken from prison by the actual quote-unquote Mandarin. And I love that scene where Tony Leung is saying, I've gone by many names. And this guy, this impersonator, called me an orange. The Mandarin.
The Mandarin. He goes, I'll hail the orange.
He doesn't give away that this guy is imprisoned.
Right.
And basically being like, he's Ben Stiller in Tropic Thunder. Performing for Wenwu. So
I thought that was a nice callback. And
it was so funny. And then they get, of course, because he talks to Morris realizes that, these people can get me back to the village. And that monologue about Planet of the Apes is just hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was good stuff, man. It really was. I was very happy with it.
Yeah. And again, the kaiju stylings of that final fight between the dragon and the dweller in the darkness was pretty damn cool, I have to say.
I really liked the fight between Wenwu and Zhang Li at the beginning. It actually reminded me a lot. You could tell it was sort of shot in this style of the way Zhang Yimou shot all the fight scenes in Hero, if you've ever seen Hero, which, by the way, Tony Leung's also in Hero, so you should go and watch that if you've never seen it. By the way, I should mention, if you're listening and you want to go watch Hero, make sure it is the Hong Kong version. There's also an Indian film that came out a few years ago. Maybe it's more recent. So, but just make sure you get the right hero, I guess.
It should be illegal. Stop making movies with the same
make movies
name.
that have the same title.
Same name. Stop. That almost happened on Hard Boiled. I almost watched a kid's chicken movie.
And Michelle Yeoh and Tony Leung have not been in a film together for 28 years.
Wow.
Which is astonishing to me.
But you talk about that opening fight. To me, it was. I also got a lot of vibes from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which obviously is a little more mainstream for people who aren't entrenched in this world. It was beautiful. It was very well choreographed. It was. You could see the emotion between these characters. It was like a poetic dance.
And I love the fact that it's Katie that delivers the death blow to the Dweller. Because that's an arc for her character, which is you would assume is just a secondary, supportive character, but she really comes to the fore because, Shang Chi turns out to be stepping into his role, and she doesn't really have that, but she comes into it herself at the end once she applies herself and does it at the
and the sister as well has a nice arc because she now steps into her father's role, as we see in the end credits.
Yeah, but will she be a benevolent?
Yeah.
Well, that's the question, because I think that like she was mad at Shang-Chi because he deserted her.
Yeah.
Her mom died. Her dad left her alone, and then the one kitty she had in her life, he's like, "Yeah, I'll be back in 3 days," and never came back. I'd be mad at him too. She beat the crap out of him in that fight ring, by the way.
But go back to think about that, is that when you're watching it, you're thinking, well, okay, did she summon him here to just kick his ass? But no, she didn't even summon him.
She didn't even.
So it wasn't even her. So she's just a surprise to see him.
See, I like the way that this is structured, because you get a lot of these. It's like point A to point B, but every time you get a flashback, it fills in a little bit more of who these other characters are and why they are the way they are. Right. More so than Shang-Chi. He just ran away. Again, I can't say enough about it. I really like this. It's getting some sketchy comments on IMDb, and I
read the comments on IMDb.
No, but there's a lot of people that do, and it's only sitting at like an 8.1 out of 10. I think it's got a higher rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but that's my point basically, is don't listen to these reviews. Don't listen to us and be like, oh, they didn't like it, I'm not going to go watch it. Go watch it for yourself. We did like this. So
yes, we did.
I think all three of us are in agreement here.
Yes. And talking about the stakes being high, people do lose their lives in that final battle. Yeah. The character of the head archer there, he gets his soul sucked, and he doesn't come back. So that's part of the ending, is that cathartic honoring of the dead. So there are stakes. Here.
Yeah. There's other characters that don't make it out, and obviously the mom. He's until the very end, you're like, maybe he's gone to something.
I mean, maybe she's alive. Yeah,
no, you're kind of like, no, he's just crazy. So, I did have people literally gasp at the end credit with when you got to see Bruce Banner and Carol Danvers. So does this make him an Avenger now? Or are they just is Wong just consulting them?
Also, so Bruce isn't full time in the Hulk body anymore.
I know, and he had his arm in a cast.
Yeah, that's
which
what I was thinking
interesting.
About. I was wondering if that arm is just never going to be right again.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point. That the last time we saw him, he was in a Hulk form. You're right.
Yes.
So all I can think of is that maybe we'll get some answers in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Now, this is a question as well. Why wouldn't they just take those 10 rings? Any other situation, if it wasn't in somebody else's movie, he'd be like, I'll have those, thank you.
Yes,
I'm going to put them, I'm going to lock them away.
Lock them up, yeah.
It's funny because I actually think Wong would be less likely to do that than Doctor Strange would. I think Doctor Strange would be like, yeah, that's a dangerous artifact. You can't have that.
That belongs in the museum.
We can't have this out there, because that's the reveal at the end, is they're sending out a beacon.
Yes,
we don't know to whom or why.
These things are not from this earth, and they are somehow sending out a beacon.
Yeah.
So that is very interesting, and I do like that, because we are going much more cosmic with this whole Phase 4.
So how tied into the end game of Phase 4 are the 10 rings going to be?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I wasn't here when you guys discussed the Loki show, but of course we did watch it, and I thought it was pretty clear that they were setting up Kang the Conqueror as sort of the big Thanos of this arc. So like, how would he tie into that potentially? Or is it just like they're laying in for some future phase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because it's obvious as soon as the movie cuts at the very, very end, after you see the reveal of the sister who's building up her own compound for the 10 rings, and then it says the 10 rings will return. That's what Shang-Chi is going to be dealing with. I think it was obvious to me in the sequel is that they're going to continue this story.
Right.
So yeah, who knows when we're going to see the continuation of the 10 rings themselves.
It may not pay off for another 5 years for all we know, the way Marvel likes to pull things together. So did you catch it that there was a remembrance of this Brad Allen? I guess he was a supervising stunt coordinator who passed away after the making of this movie.
And in a special thanks, Ralph Macchio is in there. If you notice that.
I didn't see that.
I don't know why.
That.
I don't know why, but he's in there.
Karate Kid.
He was the Karate Kid. Yes.
Did he teach Simu karate? I don't think so. Well, we all know how he got this role, right? We know the story.
Yeah,
he
tweeted.
He basically asked for it. He just tweeted out the Marvel. Hey, Marvel.
Maybe I should try that. Hey, people, listen to my podcast and they'll listen.
Yeah.
You just have to directly ask. That's all you got to do.
I know. That's all you have to do. So.
But apparently not just the tweet where he asked to be in Shang-Chi, but even earlier than that, apparently he had tweeted out like years ago, "Hey Marvel, like when are you going to have some Asian representation?" So like he's apparently been
he's been
asking the universe for this for a while.
Yeah. And I was fascinated that the Shang-Chi film was in development way back into the 80s.
Yes, yeah.
And Brandon Lee was being looked at then
Oh my
for
gosh,
Shang-Chi.
Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
I know. It's funny, after watching a lot, I sat down last night and I had to watch Raya and the Last Dragon again just to get a little more Aquafina in my life. So
Have you seen Crazy Rich Asians?
I have, yeah.
Because she's hilarious in that movie.
No, that's I don't think that's on any streaming that I can watch for free though. I just knew Raya was
I own that movie.
Okay. I know Raya was on Disney Plus.
So what kind of buckets are we thinking for Shang-Chi?
4. I'll say exactly a solid 4 for me.
I'm going to go 3.5.
And I agree. It's a 4. This jumped into my top 5.
Nice.
So, because we've talked about this before. You guys know, I can take or leave like 90% of the Marvel movies. I've actually liked the TV shows better.
Yeah.
Overall, because I'm like a character development nerd.
Well, that's just
they can seep into
7,
the
8
characters.
episodes, correct.
Yeah, this one jumped right up there for me. So
nice.
I like this a lot.
There you go.
All right.
High praise from the TMI crew here.
Yes, go see it. If you're on the fence, go see it.
Go enjoy that theater experience and then let us know how it went.
All right, let's go to the concession stand and we'll be back with Hard Boiled.
Popcorn freshly popped and buttered. Look good? Sure, it looks good, and it tastes even better. Get some now. Satisfy the kiddies with a bag of crisp, crunchy popcorn. And don't forget to get an extra bag or 2 to take to the car to munch on during the show. You will also want to take a supply of ice-cold soft drinks or delicious, flavorful coffee to keep you refreshed throughout the next show. Make the evening complete by getting a tasty treat for yourself and every member of your party. Make your visit to our theater a pleasant occasion to be remembered. We'll be richly rewarded with the thought that we have pleased you.
Okay, we are back and we are talking Hard Boiled. So, Christina, take it away.
I have no notes on this.
You have 0 notes?
No, I do. I have notes. I'm just going to say that there's not a single thing that I can bring to the table that you are not going to school me on. Although I will have to say, I brought this up when I rented the DVD from the library. It was locked, and I had to go to the front desk, and they unlocked it, and I immediately texted you and said, "What the hell did you get me into? Porn's not even locked."
And I said, ultra violence.
Yeah.
And I was right.
You were right, but it just seemed excessive that it was locked. It made me really be like, wait a minute, what is going on?
Now I was convinced I had seen this, and I hadn't before. I had seen The Killer, and I was confusing the two. So I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen this. And then going back and looking at The Killer, I'm like, that's the one I saw. And I think I actually saw Better Tomorrow as well. But I've never seen Hard Boiled. First viewing.
There you go. My first as well.
Great. I love this. So because I've watched this movie so many times. So just briefly, the plot is actually relatively simple. Seems a little more complex when you're watching it, but actually it all comes together like pretty simply. So Chow Yun-fat plays sort of a very stereotypical macho lone wolf type police officer. He's actually a type that's sort of been originated and perfected in, films that are made in the West. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why this film is a little more popular in the West than it actually was in Hong Kong. Like John Woo had done A Better Tomorrow, he had done The Killer. They were huge hits in Hong Kong. And this film wasn't quite as popular. This was more popular in the West. And I think it's because Chow Yun-fat's character is more of a Western style hero.
Well, his name is Tequila too. So
yes, his name is Tequila. Yeah. And he is working on a case where he's trying to crack like this big arms ring. And there's two conflicting gangs. There's Hoy's gang and there's Johnny Wong's gang. And in the course of trying to crack this case, he keeps bumping up against an undercover cop played by Tony Leung. His name is Alan in the film. And he doesn't know that Alan is a cop. Though.
I don't think we know.
Neither
right.
do we. Neither do we.
Right,
I thought Alan was, this guy's the biggest scumbag. He's killing his own boss.
I know.
It's like his dad. I could never like this guy. I'm never gonna like this character. I'm like,
and you're like, I like him.
I kind of like this.
Damn
guy.
it, I like him.
Yeah. And then at the end, because much like he is in Shang Chi, he was a character who has all these layers. He's a cop who wants to do good things and who's forced to do bad things because of the role that he's playing. Yeah. And he feels conflicted because the gang that he initially infiltrates, Uncle Hoy's gang, the head of the organization treats all of his men like their family. And he's contrasted with Johnny's character, who's just like an unhinged psychopath.
Right. Uncle Hoy is the guilt-laying father. I'm not angry.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not angry. I'm disappointed.
No, not the disappointment. Yeah.
What's interesting is that Tony Leung would end up playing basically this same character again in Infernal Affairs 10 years later, where he plays the good guy who's starting to lose his sense of who he is because of all the stuff that he does. And so this film, that's pretty much the plot in a nutshell. Like they're trying to crack this arms gang. Johnny ends up setting up a situation halfway, not even halfway, maybe a third of the way through the film, where Hoy's gang gets taken out. And Tequila doesn't care who's in charge. He's just trying to take them all down.
Yeah.
But first he wants to find Johnny's stash of weapons. And it turns out that he has stashed them in the basement of a hospital. And I just want to point out that there is an hour left to the movie when Tequila first enters that hospital.
Yes. I couldn't believe that because it was very late and I watched this in one sitting. So, and it was getting late and I'm like, I wonder how much more this has left because it looks like they're wrapping it up now.
They're wrapping it up.
For the climax. And I'm like, oh, okay.
This is what happens when you have magic weapons that don't need to be reloaded.
Well, they do reload.
I know, but there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of shell casings flying in a 6-shooter.
And also there's more blood spatter in this movie than honestly a lot of horror movies.
That first opening fight sequence in the
tea house.
Well, what was up with the birds, by the way? I didn't understand.
Well, that's always a Woo thing. That is
a John Woo thing.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen The Killer, he just releases doves for no reason whatsoever.
Even in Hard Target, he's got the doves.
I wouldn't want birds over my food while I'm eating.
But it's a very convenient device to hide weapons in the bottom.
No, that was actually very well done. But that opening, like that sets the tone right there. Yeah. I'm like, all right, this is what we're in for. Because
I think that place was called the Tiki Room, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, that's it does at the very end of that sequence. It sets up that beautiful shot where Tequila ends up rolling in flour, right? So he looks
Yes,
like
right.
a ghost,
Yeah,
and
I
then
know.
he
I'm like,
shoots the guy in the face, and he's got the artistic Pollock style blood splatter
yeah.
across his
No,
face.
I did make a special note about the rolling in the flower
Mm.
scene there.
Mhm.
Even by the end, the baby has the blood splatter on its
I
face.
know.
No babies were harmed in the making of this movie. I did not see
That
that at the end of the movie.
baby
I did not see that.
was the cutest baby when he kisses that baby and
Yes, yeah.
smiles. Like, don't you want to reach through and grab that baby and kiss
That
it?
baby was adorable.
So
That baby did
adorable.
not sign up for that. By
Of
the
course,
way.
and the flyaway hair as well was.
Yes. Actually, it was funny because we were watching this and my son was like, that baby's all grown up now. I'm like, you're right. That
I
baby's
know.
all grown up
I
now.
wonder if he became Candyman.
Ooh.
Oh, sorry.
Foreshadowing.
Get into next
Spoiler.
week.
Spoiler.
But yeah, so and I think one of the interesting things about this film, first of all, obviously these completely operatic action sequences.
Yeah.
You know, to some extent, this style has been adopted in the West more recently in the John Wick films. If you've ever seen
Right.
John Wick,
But even Wu came over and directed the third Mission Impossible, which has elements of this, not to this level.
Mhm.
But yeah, this is
He's let off the chain here. This is insane, the level of violence, but it's artful.
It's I mean, sliding down a banister. Just there's
he actually conceived that first scene in the tea house because he saw the banister.
Oh,
and he
really?
was like, yes, it was literally, he was like, what if the hero went down the banister firing the bad guy? That was the scene that was in his head. So yeah, it's there's just nothing really like this in the West, certainly at that time.
No,
and then his style is so influential. I'm gonna be completely honest, like Quentin Tarantino doesn't exist unless he saw a Hong Kong film.
But I think that he wears that proudly. You know, a lot of stuff that Tarantino does is just regurgitating stuff that he grew up on.
Well, I think
he's trying to emulate it.
I think his later films, he sort of more obviously says, hey, this is what I love, and like I'm showing it to you. I certainly feel that happens like from Kill Bill forward.
Yeah.
But like if you go back to Reservoir Dogs, he literally lifted the plot of City on Fire, which like the whole plot of City on Fire is Reservoir Dogs basically. And he never admitted that he did it. So City on Fire, directed by Ringo Lam, not John Woo, but also starring Chow Yun-fat. It was a very permissive kind of film system in Hong Kong. So these directors were really able to kind of do what they wanted. In fact, when China took over from the British, because it was a British protectorate until quite recently, a lot of Hong Kong filmmakers were concerned about that they were going to be censored by the Chinese government, and of course they have been. But what John Woo's able to get away with in this film is astonishing, I think.
Now, you were talking about actors being injured because of being guinea pigs.
Yes.
And some of the stunts in this are so memorable that I'm not surprised that you say that. I'm like, people look like they're getting hurt here.
Yes,
motorcycle in the back of the truck.
Yes. So two things happen specifically. So in the hospital sequence, which is the largest sequence of this film, and I just want to go back to what we were talking about with stakes. So John Woo sets up this huge showdown between Johnny and the police, Johnny's gang and the police in this hospital where you have sick people, elderly people, babies, newborn babies,
doctors, nurses,
people who are completely vulnerable. Completely vulnerable, who cannot move quickly. In the case of the babies, they cannot move around at all. So it makes the whole thing so tense because you're so concerned throughout. Are these people going to make it? Are they going to be okay? The gang members are total scumbags. They use in a very memorable scene, they use the patients as hostages.
It's incredible how they can use this setup And because that's also, not only are the patients vulnerable, but to your point, it really underlines the fact of how evil this gang is to hide behind this hospital.
And so, but in the hospital sequence, John Woo said they didn't have the money because it was a low budget film to do safety glass on, and there's a lot of breaking glass.
Yeah, there sure is.
And during one of the scenes where Tony Leung he was on, I think it was the scene where he was on the cart and he's like sort of rolling along shooting. A piece of glass ended up in his eye. And he finished the scene. And then he went to John Woo and he said, John, something's in my eye. And John Woo was like, his eye was bleeding. So he actually got glass
clutching his pearls again,
embedded in his eye. And he had to go to the hospital.
Now he's a Bond villain, by the way.
Have it removed. Luckily, he was not blinded by this
brutal
accident. And then in the scene where at the end, almost at the very end, where Chow Yun-fat is running down the hall with the baby trying to get out of the building. So they had set up the scene and the explosions had gone off behind him. And John Woo was like, they're not big enough. And so he goes to the effects people and he says, I want bigger. I want you to put more dynamite in there. I want there to be more explosions. And the stunt people are like, we can't do that. It's too dangerous. And he's like, no, it's fine. It's not dangerous. He goes, it's not real. Okay, well, I just want to point out. The explosion's not real. I just want to point out as a side note that explosions are real.
Right. It's not CG. I don't think it's that capability.
You cannot. I mean, you can stage them, and to a certain extent, you can try to control them, but they are definitely real. Correct, and there is danger involved.
Boom.
So,
unless you've got Ben Kingsley in character directing the film.
There you go. Wow.
This is just acting.
Don't worry. I got a baby to hide behind.
Right. So he sets up the shot again. They have all the extra dynamite, right? And then John Woo says, I want the button, like to set off the explosions.
Why would you not?
Because he wants to be the one who starts it. So what he does is he sets off the explosion before he calls action. So Chow Yun-fat does not realize like the explosions are starting now, right? So then he realizes Woo calls action. He starts running, and John Woo was like, he was literally running for his life. The scene where he throws the gun, it was totally improvised. He was like, I'm not carrying this. Like he just like tossed it over his shoulder. And all these explosions are going off behind him. And he comes out and his back was literally smoking. Like his hair had been singed. His back was smoked. This is like the star of your movie. They would never do this
on a good day's work. All right, cut.
They don't even let actors here like ride motorcycles on their day off.
No, I mean, you're here. Yeah, we lose stunt people.
And then he's
doing stuff like this.
He said they finished the scene, and he goes straight. Chow Yun-fat goes straight to the producer, and he's like, "John tried to kill me." And then
sorry, you signed this contract.
And then he turns to John and said, "Did you get your shot?" And John was
more
like,
important.
"Yes,
yeah,
I got the shot," because he did not want to do that again.
Wow, that's crazy. That is.
But yeah, like I said, they just use the actors really. They're like crash test dummies, like whatever.
But it is great on film. It is great on film to see that actor and know it's that actor.
Well, look at that fear on his face. That's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he really was afraid.
He doesn't know it yet, but we put live piranhas in that pool.
I did think there was a funny bit. I had to laugh to myself during the warehouse fight when Alan actually confronts his old boss because Johnny is there and it's like, to test his loyalty, you gotta kill him. During that the battle that follows, there's one scene where Chow Yun-fat comes down on a wire like Garth Brooks, like through, and I'm like, and I think to myself, if this were Octopussy, there'd be a Tarzan yell in the back.
That is true.
A Johnny Weissmuller. Oh.
Yeah. I found it interesting. This came out in 1992, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Terminator 2 also came out that same year.
Mm-hmm.
And they both employ a scene when he's in the hospital and he's hiding the gun inside a box of roses.
Yeah.
They both had the exact same scene set up. And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. Same year. There's no way they could have, unless they same stunt producer on both of them. And they're like, hey, I'm going to use it on this one too.
I think again, like, even though we're talking about the action and there's a lot of like big action sequences in this, I think one of the things that makes it interesting is there's all these kind of moral gray areas that happen in the film, like where Foxy, who's Tequila's informant, he's doing this because he wants to like get his mom safe in like an old, in like a senior home.
Yeah.
And he just wants his mom to be safe and happy, and like Alan is doing all these terrible things in the name of good, and like everyone he kills like weighs on his soul. He makes these paper cranes like to remind himself of his sin.
Yep.
And even Mad Dog has morals. When they come into this
know.
scene where him and Alan like have the patience between them, he won't shoot.
He won't do it.
Shoot it. He won't
Talk
do it,
about Terminator. This guy, I was waiting for him to come up. He looks like he should be in the Happy Mondays, by the way, because of his floppy hair. He's like the Shawn Ryder of this movie. So something's going to go down the minute he appears on screen. And the fact that even he has a conscience at the end. My name is Mad Dog, and this is where I draw the line.
But I'm not that man.
Right. Well, his whole thing is like he'll shoot at the cops, he'll shoot at other gang members, but he doesn't want to like kill innocent people.
Yeah.
And Johnny's, like I said, he's a completely unhinged psychopath who, just is like, whatever's in my way, I'll shoot it. I mean, the way he finally draws this line with the cops, it's insane. Like his whole organization is destroyed because he just won't back down. Right? Like all his men are killed, the stash is found, all of this stuff. I mean, obviously at the end he is also killed. Spoiler alert. And the other thing too is like, these aren't just action sequences. We look at it and we're like, oh, action sequence. These are incredibly complex pieces of choreography that have dozens of people in them. Almost every scene has tons of people, like people outside. And then like all the scenes outside, there's a burning car, like right in the foreground.
Yeah.
There's all of this stuff you have to like negotiate. Apparently the scene, to shoot this, I call it a scene. It's not a scene. It's half the movie. It took about 40 days. And Tony Leung said it felt like it was longer.
That's a long shoot.
Because they literally lived at the warehouse. Where they were shooting it. It was a Coca-Cola warehouse that they turned into the hospital.
Okay.
And then like this scene where Tequila and Alan go into the elevator, and they go one flight and they come out, there's no cut. The camera was rolling. The camera was following them. And that was how they shot it. You think about how complicated that is. They have to do this whole sequence in the hallway. They get in the elevator.
Yep.
There's no cut. They go up. They keep rolling. They're still filming. So, it was like incredibly grueling, and everybody's, just doing this.
Well, when your director's randomly blowing shit behind you too, that keep you on your toes. It's like, I'm done.
But this whole extended climax in the hospital just ratchets completely, because it starts out with them trying to move Foxy around to help him. And then it goes into the basement where they're actually trying to find where the guns are, until the point where they get stuck in the vault where the guns are, and then they can't get into the next room, and then Alan has to electrocute himself in order to get into the next room. And then I thought it was a very, I hate to bring it up, but a Phantom Menace moment when Mad Dog comes in and starts fighting the both of them. And they're still not really a match for Mad Dog, even the two of them. It's very much a Qui-Gon and Ben
Darth
moment
Maul,
against Darth Maul.
Obi-Wan.
Each sequence just kicks it up a notch, and that whole, it's not like you're ever bored of or overexposed to it. It just he manages to bring new facets of the violence and the action. And then finally, the baby's being in peril, which is
That's like,
What?
that's what,
Right, not a puppy. A puppy might have been worse, but geez.
that's what I mean when I say like he really makes you feel the stakes. This isn't just like a gang,
Correct,
fight.
right.
This
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
there are innocents, real innocents who are in danger here. And Teresa is trying to get the babies out of the building. These SWAT guys are taking them down the side of the building in like
Yeah,
these little like sort of, jerry-rigged cribs. And just as they think they're all clear, of course, there's still one baby left. And Tequila has to go and get the baby. But as soon as he tries to go and get the baby and get out, he starts getting attacked. And now he's trying to keep the baby safe in his arms while he's shooting
while
at
he's-
men
yeah.
who are shooting at him. And the whole time you're just in such a state like, please don't let anything happen to this baby. Please don't let
Yeah.
anything happen to this baby. As I said, the cutest baby I've ever seen on screen. So cute, this baby. And he's like, and it's so sweet, this contrast where he's holding the baby and he's singing to the baby and he's like talking cute to the baby the way you do. And then he turns and he kills people and then he comes back and he's like, cute baby, trying to make him laugh. Yeah, it really just, it takes things to another level.
Yeah, that kid's 29 now, by the way.
Yeah.
Easily. No, probably in his 30s.
That's a
crazy.
grown up baby.
Yeah. I was in this movie.
So Tony Leung, his character was supposed to die at the end of the film. And it does seem initially like he has died, right?
Right.
Because he shoots through himself
Yes.
to kill Johnny.
Right. Just as Tequila fires the bullet through his eye. So it seemed like he was going to die. And apparently the crew of the film came to John Woo and said, please let his character live, because they all loved Tony Leung so much. They were like, he's such a polite guy and he's so wonderful and like he's so nice. So please let his character live. So they changed the ending because they admired him so much. So Alan lives, he sails away and leaves his paper cranes behind, leaving his sin behind. And he gets to have his light after all the darkness.
Yep, he's gonna.
I wonder,
alligator.
Did he get the Duran Duran Rio yacht at the
I
end?
know. I did this. This did. I actually have some of the cuts in this were like a Duran Duran video.
Well, I mean, it is 1992.
Well, Jan Hammer. But it's 92. That's kind of past the But I
mean, there's quite a lot
even
of
the
synth.
soundtrack had a little Jan Hammer-esque notes going on there.
And I have to say, a shout out to Hard Target again, that Teresa had a moment where she gets slapped and called a bitch, and then she turns around and shoots the guy immediately in the stomach, which is repeated in Hard Target.
Yeah, don't call women bad names because they
Nope.
No, they will shoot you in the stomach.
No.
All right. So Christina, what is your connection with this? When is the first time you saw Hard Boiled?
I saw this on videotape, so that probably gives you some perspective.
For you youngins, that's a VHS.
Probably the mid to late 90s. I saw this the first time. I can't remember for sure, but probably around then. That sounds right. I was in college. I think it was the first, not just the first John Woo film that I saw, but the first like Hong Kong cinema film that I saw. And it just kind of opened up, I don't know, a whole world for me. We talked about
floodgates.
talked about Jackie Chan. Police Story is one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was going to say at the beginning of the DVD. They have all this. Was it the Shaw Brother collection?
Mm-hmm.
And they had Police Story 2 with Jackie Chan. I'm like, I kind of want to watch these movies now.
You should. We should do a review of Police Story. There was actually a great Criterion edition of Police Story and Police Story 2 that came out last year.
Yeah.
And it's so nice. There's like a really, obviously like these are old prints, so they're cleaned up kind of as much as they can be. But Jackie Chan's stunts in Police Story are legendary. He broke his ribs doing the final stunt in Police Story, where he fell like a floor and a half to complete this stunt. But apparently they all just did this.
Yeah.
Tony Leung broke his arm on the Grandmaster. He got kicked during a he's supposed to be like he's supposed to be Ip Man, the kung fu master, and he got kicked during a scene and he broke his arm, and then he didn't let it heal completely because he was anxious to get back to the set, and then he got kicked again and they re-broke it. This is in 2008. This is not like
meanwhile, Harrison Ford gets a hangnail and they have to delay filming for 6
Right.
weeks.
Yeah, I guess it's just, guys like Jackie Chan who sort of created this ethic of like they do it themselves. And, I don't think they try to be unsafe, but they certainly like push the envelope.
OSHA was definitely not.
And again, like I think it's just this idea that like your lead actors will do their stunts. They will do their own things. And it's sort of expected. There are stuntmen also, but a lot of times those stuntmen are just playing other characters in the film. A lot of times when you see like random thugs in the background, those are the stuntmen.
That's just stuntmen. Those are stuntmen, yeah. And stunt babies. We had a bunch of
Stunt babies.
Stunt babies.
What was interesting for me to read about this is that this was the last movie before John Woo came over to America, because the next year he did Hard Target. But this was released in April of 92 in Hong Kong. And then it was in November, I believe, of the same year that it came out in the US. It was critically more well received in the US than it was in Hong Kong, because apparently they compared it to The Killer and A Better Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And maybe they were just like, too knowing of Woo's work, saying, his earlier work was better. But, Boston Herald calls it Woo's masterpiece. Newsday, and I love this, his shootouts are a ballet. His firebombings, poetry. It was greeted like a fine wine in the U.S.
Very cool.
All right. So what kind of buckets would we give Hard Boiled?
Oh, I know.
You guys know I'm going high.
Go Christina.
So I'm going to say for me, this is like a 4 3/4, maybe.
Wow.
Really pretty close to a 5.
All right. I'm going to go a 3 on this. I enjoyed it. I liked it. Not necessarily sure I'd see it again.
You see,
but now I want to see other ones. Like I said, I want Police Story and some of the police, some of the other stuff I saw trailers for.
I would go 3 1/4. I think I did like Shang Chi a little bit better. I gave that 3.5, so I would go 3 1/4 with this. But I was a complete joy to watch it. Yes. I will say.
In Cantonese too, right?
Yes, in Cantonese. Right. So if it's shot in Hong Kong, it's Cantonese. Mainland China, it would be Mandarin. Actually, that has been an issue for some Hong Kong actors who've done, especially after the merge, where they've done films by mainland Chinese directors. They don't know how to speak Mandarin. Like Michelle Yeoh famously did not know how to speak Mandarin when she did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Wow.
She had to learn. I mean, she already knew 3 languages, but Mandarin wasn't one of them.
Gotta learn one more. Sorry.
So that kind of wraps up this episode. Now, Christina, you haven't been with us for a few months.
Sometime.
You may or may not be aware, we have kind of, I think, exhausted our confessional ideas. So we've kind of left that feature by the wayside.
Kind of throw it by the wayside.
In an attempt to more streamline our shows. So
I don't think anybody has missed it.
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. Yeah.
No, we haven't missed it.
All that survives is our name.
That's true. Well, we confess every week, though.
Yeah,
we could do a quick confessional, which I had wanted to do months ago, which was our top 5 Marvel.
Oh, I'd have to really.
I'm not throwing that one out there.
You need to think about that.
I need to think about that.
Are we counting the Spider-Man movies among them, though?
Yeah, I mean, I think MCU with Spider-Man, X-Men. Yeah.
Well, let's do that. Let's keep that on the back burner. Let's do that with the next Marvel movie that we discuss. So is that going to be Eternals? I believe it is.
That would be Eternals. So. As long as it doesn't get bumped back again.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yep.
So next week, we've already revealed earlier, but we are covering Candyman.
Oh, boy.
I know Jeff was so excited to see this one.
Well, and we are pairing this up with Tigers Are Not Afraid. And I will tell you right now, I will leave you a tease that I have not stopped thinking about either one of these movies.
My work here is done.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Stay tuned.
Next week.
So,
Next week.
Candyman.
Thanks for
Don't
listening,
you
everybody.
dare say his name 5 times.
You can say it, just not near a reflective surface.
What is up with people? How stupid are you? Stop doing that. Okay, that's all we got. Enjoy.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
All right, let's go to the concession stand, and we'll be back with Hard Boiled
Eggs.